Hey. So, it is, what time is it? It's 1:33. This is Monday, June the 30th. And I am sitting in my son's car. I'm sitting outside the DMV office, and I got my study materials with me. See? I got my study materials with me. First of all, I must say, we're again looking at one verse. I'm laughing because that's how it has been since I first started looking at this with Ezekiel chapter 23. It's like it's been one verse. This is video number 5, I think. Let's see. Yep, this is video number 5, and we're on verse number 5. And it is a total of 49 verses in this particular chapter of Ezekiel chapter 23, and I am hoping that I don't have to do 49 videos. I'm hoping, but so again, this is the 3-part series. I'm gonna do as much of this video as I can until my son comes, and then I'll pick up at home once I get back home. So this is a 3-part series. It is part 3 of the 3-part series. If you see me keep looking up, I'm like watching for my son. So this is part 3 of the 3-part series. The focus scripture is Ezekiel chapter 23 verse 36, which says, "The Lord also said to me, Son of man, will you judge Oholah and Oholibah? Then declare to them their abominations." That part. So I'm in the car, so I'm navigating my space, y'all, with my notes. All right, so the abominations, when it said that to judge them, the reference for that was 2, and it was Ezekiel chapter 20 verse 4 as well as Ezekiel chapter 22 verse 2, and both of those references referred me back to part 1 and part 2 of this 3-part series. Like we already covered it in detail. So part 1, reference 1, was Ezekiel chapter 20 verse 4, where we were told to make known to them the abominations of the fathers. So with that, we were looking back at the ancestors, and we were looking at what it was that they had did, and not the ancestors of Israel itself, the original 12, the original brothers, from whom came the tribe of Israel. The second reference was Ezekiel chapter 22 verse 2, and there we were told to judge the bloody city and to show her all of her abominations. And so now we're looking at the place of worship, the bloody city. We're looking at Jerusalem itself. And so with this chapter, and it was ironic that I saw that, because I knew I didn't know immediately, but by the time I ended the video 1, I think, of part 3, the first video for this part, by the time I ended that, I knew that I was looking back at them, and I knew that I was looking at this thing in 3 ways. Number 1, first looking at the ancestors to see what the ancestors did. Number 2, looking at Israel to see what Israel did. And number 3, looking at ourselves now. And that's the part. God is showing us them and showing us everything they did, because that's what we're doing today. We're doing these things today, and it is angering God. So and I have found, like, listen, when I start figuring it out, when I start understanding that, yeah, these studies start getting real interesting, start getting real deep, and that's where I found that Like, I'd have a whole lot of information, like detailed information off of one particular verse. So we're gonna start. We're in again, we're covering the entire chapter now of Ezekiel chapter 23. This is video number 5. So we are looking at verse number 5. So just as a recap, verse 1 and 2. Verse 1 and 2, we realize that we're looking at the individuals. We're looking at the individuals. Israel is 10 tribes, and Judah it being 2 tribes. Both of them makes up the nation of Israel, which is a total of 12 tribes total. So we kind of went over that and really started seeing this in first or the second video, I think. Video number 3, verse number 3, I should say. Verse 3, we looked at the fact that they, number 1, sold themselves into slavery, and how that this was done at a young age, basically meaning that they were impetuous in their immaturity, like they acted without thinking. So we looked at that. We looked at the fact that where it says their breasts were embraced, and the fact that people gravitated to their strength and perceived vitality. And one of the things that I realized with this particular study is that with the Israelites, they always tended to be a positive contribution to wherever the land was that they were exiled at. They tended to come out highly successful. My leg is starting to ache. They were highly successful in the various places where they were exiled. So the next thing, and that's what it meant when it says their breasts were embraced, in that the breasts were embraced, I guess. Where Ezekiel chapter 23, let me turn to that, verse 3. The breasts were, so basically they were very successful. Then it said their virgin bosom was there pressed, and with that I realized this is because they were taken advantage of, they were used, they were abused, often relentlessly and unjustly persecuted. And so that was verse 3. Again, we looked at that, we covered that in detail in video 3, and today the part that where I realized that, okay, they were very successful, and then them being relentlessly and unjustly persecuted, I recognize that today, that part today, so I wrote it in my notes. So verse number 4, video 4, verse 4, we talked about Oholah and Oholibah, and we identified them. So Oholah, being the oldest, is Samaria. And Oholah, what that name means, the name itself means her own tabernacle. Her own tabernacle. And so basically it was referencing the fact that Samaria stopped worshiping God in his prescribed way, how he wanted to be worshipped. She started doing her own thing. And you see that in all these, ironically, okay, so we was born into this, meaning that the way things are operating now with all these different churches, like in some places, like for instance, when I lived in Virginia, when I tell you, within a 3-block radius, there was at least 4 churches. Well, let me see. There was an AME church. On the other end was I don't know if I want to call it a Mennonite. Then at the other end of the block was a Baptist church, and around the corner was a Mexican church. Like, there was literally, you could walk the block, and they actually sometimes they did things in association with one another. Sometimes, I'm looking at this van pulling back, like he's coming way back. It don't take all that to park, but yeah, okay, they figured it out. I'm sorry for the interruptions, the distractions. I apologize, but I want to go ahead and get this done because I don't know what my timing is going to be like when I get home. So anyway, Oholah, her own tabernacle. She was doing her own thing. She just was not worshiping God, like not serving him. She was doing what she wanted to, even though she belonged to Yahweh, our Heavenly Father, but she was just doing her own thing, y'all. Oholibah, which is Jerusalem, Oholibah, that name means my tabernacle is in her. My tabernacle is in her. Jerusalem was the place that God had chose for his name to be, the place that he had prescribed for worship. That's why when King Jesus, if you remember when King Jesus was here on earth and he was talking to the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman, he said to her, y'all don't even know what y'all worship, but we do. Like he literally, that's literally what the issue was. Like, God had placed his name. He had ordained for his worship to be done at Jerusalem, and he had ordained for how. But then Jerusalem, y'all people, like, God's organization is perfect. God's organization is perfect, but we as humans are imperfect. And when you place somebody imperfect in something that is perfect, what is perfect is going to operate, but because of the imperfections of the people, doing their own thing, y'all know what I'm trying to say, right? You know what I'm trying to say, so Oholibah represents Jerusalem, and that name means my tabernacle was in her. So Samaria had a form of worship. Samaria had a form of worship, but it was false worship. She practically just did what she wanted to do, but she worshipped a lot of the pagan idols. Like, it's completely false. And Jerusalem was the place that was chosen by God. Now, this is something that I think is going to stand out to you. Like, Samaria, we just got through saying they did what they wanted to do. Basically, they did what they wanted to do. And because of that, like, God had left them, right? But if you go look at Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 11, Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 11, there you're going to read where God said that Samaria was more righteous than Jerusalem, and he called Jerusalem treacherous. Listen. He said Samaria, this place that was doing their own thing, not worshiping God how he needed to be worshipped. God Almighty said they were more righteous than Jerusalem, the place that bore his name. Treacherous meaning that they were disloyal, talking about Jerusalem, the place of worship. Disloyal, traitorous, giving off a false appearance of safety or reliability. They were untrustworthy, insecure, and here's the kicker: faithless. Faithless. They were going through the motions of worshiping God. They were going through the motions of being, quote unquote, known as the people of God, but they were faithless. So then, if you look at verse 10 of Jeremiah, because that's Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 11, that tells us that. But if you look at verse 10, what verse 10 lets you know is that Jerusalem, that they were not worshiping God from their heart. They were worshiping him in pretense only, meaning that they were pretending. They were claiming to be, I'm going to say, like how we call it today, we call it Christians today. So they were claiming to be Christian. No, they weren't then, but today, claiming to be Christian, but that was a false claim. It was unsupported because their lifestyle did not show them to be Christian. It was a false show of something, a pretending as a play, make believe. And that's what God said about Jerusalem, the place of worship, the place known as Oholibah, where he said that name meaning my tabernacle is in her. It's in her. But that's false. That's what God is saying. So anyway, that's a review of what we've looked at so far. And now we're going to be looking at, initially it would have been, we're going to be looking at Oholah, or Samaria, the older sister Samaria, the 10 tribes. We're going to be looking at them. And it's verses 5 through 10 that we're going to be looking specifically at them, right? But here's the thing. I'm laughing because this study that I did, now I started this study at 4:45 in the morning. And what I learned early this morning, it was so intense. I'm like, oh, I need to go lay down. So I laid down. I went, and when I tell you, I was dreaming everything that I had studied. Like, I was dreaming it. And then I got up and I had the opportunity to sit down, with a little bit more. And yeah, I'm like, you know what? Let me do this video. So, verse 5, it says, Oholah played the harlot even though she was mine, and she lusted for her lovers, the neighboring Assyrians. Let me turn this around. Hold on one second. I gotta get this phone call. Okay, we're back home. And I'm picking up where I left off at. We were actually just getting ready to get into this study, so it worked out real good. So we read over Ezekiel chapter 23, verse number 5, which is the focus of this video, verse 5. I'm going to read it again. Use these glasses. Okay, so it says, Oholah played the harlot even though she was mine, and she lusted for her lovers, the neighboring Assyrians. So first of all, again, emphasis. In video number 4, we talked about that what God said, they were mine. And one of the things we talked about in video 4 was how this was, it was like a mood. God was giving his mood or his emotion based on that, like she was mine, like, that was mine. So he's emphasizing that again. She was mine. Like, she belonged to me. She was mine. And yet she played the harlot. Now that part, I want to note for that she was not a harlot. She played it. Okay? A child at play. I'm going to say it like this. A child at play. A young child will go into, like, closet, like an older parent's closet, and get some clothes on. You get some clothes out that they can play in, or like in a storage area, and go through a big chest and pull out some clothes and dress up in these clothes and pretend. So she played the harlot. There was no reason for her to do this. God said she was mine, but she played the harlot, which means that she sold herself. And he even exposed to listen. Not only did Israel play the harlot, but she was busted. Like who she played the harlot with is exposed here. It says she lusted, and she lusted for her lovers, the neighboring Assyrians. So we're gonna look at that. This is one of the things that stood out to me this morning when I was and how this ended up being a single video. This stood out to me. Now in verse number 6 and 7, it goes on to talk about these Assyrians. Do I want to read that now, or do I? Because I didn't have that in my notes. Let me just give you the information. So let me show you this first. I'm going to take the phone. I want you to see something. Okay. So I wanted you to see my Bible. Again, I use a study Bible, you guys know. So right here, this is the verse that went on, verse number 5. It says, Oholah played the harlot, even though she was mine. She lusted after her lovers, the neighboring Assyrians. Now you see that little letter right there, that letter B, next to neighboring Assyrians? So, here is 2 Kings chapter 15, verse 19, 2 Kings chapter 16, verse 7, 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 3, and Hosea chapter 8, verse 9. This is what we're about to discuss right now. All right, I wanted to show you that. Now, I also want to take note of the fact that I did not look up Hosea chapter 8, verse 9. So after we get through discussing these verses in 2 Kings, we'll do that together. Since I had not yet did that, let me move this out of the way. Okay. All right, so those references actually take us back to where it began, that Oholah and Oholibah. Because one of the things I saw, like in the notes, was that everything that Oholah did, Oholibah ended up doing the same thing. So these are easier. They're trifocals, so it's easier for me to like look down and read it and look up and still have a clear vision, as opposed to these here. So yeah, I'm just switching out. So the first scripture reference is 2 Kings chapter 15, verse 19. That one took me all the way back. Let's go over the 1 Kings. Let me put my little marker here. Okay. And we'll go over there. It was really, really interesting. Really interesting. We are going to be looking at Kings Jeroboam the second, King Uzziah or Azariah, King Jotham, King Ahaz. So it's Uzziah, Uzziah. Let's see, Azariah was his name, but his name was changed to Uzziah. So Uzziah, Jotham, and Ahaz will be looking at those three kings of Judah, as well as Jeroboam the second, Zechariah, Shalom, Menahem, Pekahiah, Pekahoshe. And what we're looking at is what led to the fall of Samaria. So let's get over here. 2 Kings chapter 15. It says verse 17 through 29, which is initially what I read, but I went back and I actually looked at the beginning of chapter 15, because it tells you like a little bit about each of these kings. And if you want more detail, you go over to Chronicles. Chronicles is like a mirror of Kings, but it gives you like between the two of them, they'll give you a little bit more detail. Sometimes it'll be Kings that'll give you more detail. Sometimes it'll be Chronicles that gives you more detail. But in these particular verses, 2 Kings chapter 15. If you notice in the video, it said 19, verse 19. But I actually looked at all of it. It starts with, oh, my voice. Sorry. It starts with Menahem. It's frog in my voice suddenly. Okay, so it starts with King Menahem, who became king over Israel, and he became king. Okay, so let me go back. Let me just do this. Let me go back. So in chapter 15, it starts off with King Azariah, who became king after Jeroboam the second. I think it's in video 4 where we talk about Jeroboam, King Jeroboam, the first one, who took over reigning as king. But then we talked about, I think it was again video 4 where we talked about what he did that caused God to not just remove him, but like his whole family, just gonna wrap all of them gone, like everybody. The only one that actually lived would have been the young boy who died. And I know that just sounded crazy how I said that. Jeroboam the first, with what he did and how much he angered God, he then says to his wife, because his son, one of his sons got sick, so he said to his wife, pretend to be somebody else and go to this prophet. The prophet that she was going to was blind. So God tells the prophet, Jeroboam's wife is getting ready to come to you. This is what's going on with her son, but this is what I need you to tell her. So when it was all done, basically what she was getting ready to tell, what the prophet was getting ready to tell the wife of Jeroboam was that how God felt about Jeroboam and everything that he did, and the curse that was being put on him, that he was going to die and none of them was going to receive a proper burial with the exception of one. And that one, the son that she actually came to see the prophet about, he told her, the minute you step foot back into the city, that son is going to die. But because God saw something in this particular son, this son is the only one that got a proper burial. Everybody else did not. And Jeroboam's name was basically being wiped off. How did it? Let's see. Let me go back over here to 1 Kings. And this is the judgment, chapter 14 is the judgment on the house of Jeroboam. And so I'm just going to get down to this last part. So it'll be verse number I'm going to start verse 10. Verse 10. So it says, therefore, behold, I will bring disaster on the house of Jeroboam. We're talking about Jeroboam 1. It says, and will cut off from Jeroboam every male in Israel, bond and free. That means all of the children of his concubines, that's the bond, and the children of the wife, which is the free. It says, I will take away the remnant of the house of Jeroboam. Now, remnant is a small amount. Out of the whole, it's a small amount of remnant. Yet, he said, I'm going to take away the remnant. So, it wouldn't even be a remnant left of them. It says, I will take away the remnant of the house of Jeroboam as one takes away refuse until it is all gone. The dogs shall eat whoever belongs to Jeroboam and dies in the city. The dogs, y'all. It says, and the birds of the air shall eat whoever dies in the field, for the Lord has spoken. Arise, therefore, go to your own house. When your feet enter the city, the child shall die, and all Israel shall mourn for him and bury him, for he is the only one of Jeroboam who shall come to the grave, because in him there is found something good toward the Lord God of Israel in the house of Jeroboam. And it says, moreover, the Lord will raise up for himself a king over Israel who shall cut off the house of Jeroboam. This is the day. What? Even now. It says what? Even now. For the Lord will strike Israel as a reed is shaken in the water. He will uproot Israel from this good land which he gave to their fathers, and will scatter them beyond the river, because they have made their wooden images, provoking the Lord to anger. And he will give up Israel, and he will give Israel up because of the sins of Jeroboam, who sinned and who made Israel sin. So this is the core root. That's the core root. So that was Israel, and then another king ended up reigning in Israel. So I have a list of like all the kings here. So the other king was Nadab, and Nadab was the son of Jeroboam. So he reigned. So let's see, these Nadab, Baasha, Elah, these are all children of Israel. And they only reigned like short amounts of time. One, Zimri, he committed suicide. Then there is the Omrites, which is Omrites, the family of Omri, which is Omri, Ahab, Azariah, Jehoram. And then you have the dynasty of Jehu. So that's what we're looking at now. We're looking at the dynasty of Jehu, and that's the family line that Azariah comes from. So, I mean, not Azariah. Azariah was king in Judah. Zechariah, Jeroboam, Zechariah, they come from the dynasty of Jehu. So Zechariah is the son of Jeroboam the second, and he ends up ruling in Samaria for only 6 months. Y'all listen, when I tell y'all back then, like, I don't even know why anybody wanted to be a king or be a ruler, because back then it was treacherous. So this Zechariah, the son of Jeroboam, he only reigned 6 months. That's it. But here's the thing too, and this is what none of them was getting. When they were getting in trouble and being removed or being killed, they were doing stuff that God did not approve of. So this one here for Zechariah, it say he reigned 6 months. It's 6 months. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord, as his fathers had done. He did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had made Israel sin. Now that will be the Jeroboam the first. He's the one, Jeroboam the first, the one that I just looked at in 1 Kings chapter 14. He's the one that built the 2 idols. He's the one that built up these high places and was doing all this other worship stuff, all these other worship practices that God did not approve of. Now here's the thing, because remember I said they did it then and we're doing it today, and people just don't understand it. It's not been understood what is angering God, and yet all these different celebrations and worship practices that are happening today, that's what's angering God. Let me keep going. So Shalom, who is son of some other guy, Jabesh, it says, conspired against him and killed him. It says in front of the people. When I tell you treacherous, this guy reigned 6 months and then he was murdered. So this guy Shalom is now reigning, and in his reigning, How long did he reign? Let's see, Shalom. He reigned 1 month. 1 month. Now he killed Zechariah, who reigned 6 months. But this is what it says about Shalom. It says Shalom, the son of Jabesh, became king in the 39th year of Uzziah, king of Judah. It says he reigned for a full month in Samaria. 1 month, 30 days. For Menahem, the son of Gadi, went up from Tirzah, came to Samaria, struck Shalom, the son of Jabesh, in Samaria, killed him, and reigned in his place. Now this guy here, Menahem, this brings us to where we are in this study today, where it said that in reference to Samaria, that she lusted after the neighboring Samaritans, after her lovers, the neighboring Assyrians. Menahem, when he did that, now one of the things that they did that I started learning about is it was this land grab. The land grab thing was real, and it was happening all the way back then. We first talked about the land grab with King Ahab, but it literally happened all the way, like, this was something that continued to happen. So King Menahem, king of Israel, in his grabbing more territory, he goes after this area called Tifsah. There was another name that was given to it. I can't remember. I had to pull out my map on this one. I had to pull out my maps on this one here. And so I wanted to find it because I'm like, I want to know what's going on here. So let's see. Is it on this map? I can use this map, but it's not on this map. It is. Is it on this one? Because that would have been right along up in here. Turquoise. Let me try a different map. Because I know I got it, because I saw it. I saw it. And I want y'all to see this, because this will trip you out, like it tripped me out. Oh, this is a good one to use, but it still doesn't show the actual city. And let's see. Okay, first of all, let me use this one to show you where Samaria is. Okay. So on this map, where we were over here. On this map, okay, that bottom one says Jerusalem. This was the place of worship that God himself chose. And this right here says Samaria. Remember, Jerusalem represents Oholibah. My tabernacle was in her. This is a place where God had chose for all of his people to come here to worship. And this is Samaria. This is when the tribes were split, and the 10 tribes decided to do their own thing because of Jeroboam the first. And so this is where they reigned from, Samaria. Now, I want to show you this part also, because remember, it's 12 tribes. And let's see, would it be in this, or would I need to go back to my other Bible? I gotta mark these maps, y'all. I have to mark these maps. I want to show you a map of the layout for the tribes of Israel. Here we go. I got it here. I know I had one. I'm gonna have to mark this. Hold on, let me mark this real quick before I turn from it. Let me mark this. These things, y'all. Okay. All right. So this will be the territory of the 12 tribes, all 12 tribes. You have Simeon, his territory right here. All of this is Judah. In the territory of Judah is where you will find Jerusalem. Let me see. Jerusalem would be number... Okay, where's Jerusalem? I would say 66. 67 is Hebron. Beth Zur. Where is Jerusalem? Where's Jerusalem? Plus, these are the Levitical cities. I'm trying to, oh, here we go, 50. Okay, there we go. All right, so I have to say, where is Jerusalem? And let me highlight these. Okay, let me highlight this. I'll use my yellow marker. 50. Okay. So here is a map that shows all 12 tribes and their locations. And so over here, this one right here, number 50, that's Jerusalem. That was the place out of all 12 where it was central, where God had chose where all 12, no matter where they live, they can go and worship. And so look on here for number 50, and you're going to see that it's going to be up in here somewhere. So where's 50? Right here. I just put a little circle around it. See it in that yellow? That's where Jerusalem was located at. And so it was easily accessible by both sides, by all of the tribes. But these are all of the tribes. And then you can see where on this end, where the territory ends. So let's see. What is that? Number 1 is Tyre. So that will be Tyre. And that's in the territory of, is that Asher? Does it say Asher? Yeah, that's in the land of Asher. So that's Tyre. So like right above it, these are the boundaries. Now y'all know we live in America. For those of us who live in America, think of our states and think of the boundaries for each of the states in the country. So you're seeing the boundary lines where you could cross from that one state into the next state. Look, think of that like that. So that's Tyre, and then you have, so Damascus is right there. So you have all of this. You see the boundaries, right? It was important to see that. So now let's go back over to this map. This map here that we were looking at. Now I gotta go find it again. And remember, our boundaries is Tyre and Damascus. Okay, all right, so we could use this map here. Oh, this is a perfect map to use. All right, so let me see, let me highlight. Okay, so here's Jerusalem. I'm going to highlight it in yellow. And a little bit above Jerusalem, we know the Samaria. So this map shows you all of it. This is actually the territory of Assyria. And it shows you all of it. And this map is a map from at the time when they were doing all that fighting that we're reading about in the Bible now. So this that I just highlighted is Jerusalem. We know that a little bit above Jerusalem would have been Samaria. So if you could find Jerusalem, Samaria is nearby. Now, we also looked at the map because we were looking at the boundaries for the tribes, right? And for like the Israeli territory. So one of the boundaries was Tyre. There's Tyre right there. You see that? It's Tyre right there. And there's Damascus right there. So you're seeing this boundary, right? So we'll just call all of this purple. Although this part of it, this little part that's sticking up, wasn't a part of that boundary that we saw in the other map. But so we'll just say the purple, right? So this king that I'm telling you about, King Menahem, he ruled in Samaria, which was down here. They went to go and fight against, or he went, it says, then from Tirzah, and I don't know where Tirzah is on the map. I will have to go look and try to find it later. Tirzah. No, let me look and see if I can find it now, because I actually want to know where it was. So let's see. We'll go back. TIR Tirzah. Here we go. 52. Map number 52. This map 50. It should be on map number 52. It's 53. It's 52. Where's found it? Okay. So let me highlight this again. I'm going to highlight Jerusalem. I'm going to highlight Samaria. I'm going to highlight Tirzah, which is right next door to Samaria. And then, of course, I'm going to highlight Tyre and Damascus, because those are our boundary lines. Let me keep my finger in this one here. Okay. So, here's Jerusalem. Here's Samaria, which, again, we're seeing the distance between them. And one of the things you guys know is when you're looking at a map, when you're zoomed in, everything looks really close. But when you zoom out, when you're zoomed in, it gives you more detailed information. But when you zoom out, everything looks like really close. So here is zoomed out some, so we get more detail. And so you see Jerusalem, you see Samaria. Here's Tirzah right there. And this is where King Menahem, that we're getting ready to read about, this is where he was fighting from. This is where he reigned over all of Israel, with Samaria being the capital. But this is where he reigned. And here's our boundary lines up here. There's Tyre, which was the boundary for Asher. And then there is Damascus. And I don't remember who Damascus was the boundary for. I'm thinking it was for the tribe of Dan. But so now knowing where everything is, let's go back over to this map here. Knowing where. Okay, so here's Jerusalem. See, I remember I said when you zoom out, you don't get as much detail. So here's Jerusalem here, and here's Damascus there. So you see how close those two are, but we know zooming in, they're not that close. So here being Jerusalem, this is the area wherein this king was reigning at, King Menahem. And he's trying to, and this is the boundaries right here, right? But he's trying to take more land. And so this here is called Thapsacos is another name for Tirzah. Thapsacos is another name for Tirzah. So this king that we're reading about, King Menahem, it says, then from Tirzah, we know that that's literally right next door to Samaria, Menahem attacked Tirzah, or Thapsacos, this place right here. Here's their boundary down here, but he's up here. And look at what he did, y'all. When I saw this, I was like, and you wonder why God was mad. Look at what he did. It's so it says, from Tirzah, Menahem attacked Tirzah. All who were there, he attacks it now. All who were there and its territory. But because they did not surrender, these people in this land did not surrender. Look at what he did. It says, therefore, he attacked it. All the women there who were with child, who were pregnant, he ripped them open. Everybody that was pregnant, all the women that was pregnant, he ripped them open. Last time I heard some mess like that was with the slave ships. There was this thing called Amistad. It was going around. I was living in Chicago at the time. I love museums. So I took my children to this museum, and I can't remember the name of the museum, but such a long time ago. But they were doing the Amistad exhibit. And so one of the things we learned is that these boats were full of slaves, and it was only a few of your captors on there, but they were full of slaves. But how they got these slaves under control, because when they arrested, they had in chain, they had children, they had women, they had men. The women that was pregnant, they took this woman, and according to the exhibit, they stood her. They took the women. They stood these women before these men that were in chains, and they raped them. But this one particular woman, because they were throwing them overboard, like anybody got sick, they just threw them overboard. But they raped them. And this one particular woman, don't know names or anything, I just remember this story because it really stood out to me. She was pregnant. They cut her open. They took the child out of her body and bashed the head of the child. I'm sorry. I am sorry. I apologize because this is graphic. But these things happen. And ironically, living down here, now I heard this, how true this is, I don't know, but I'm going to repeat what I heard. I don't know if it's true, but what I heard is that the hurricanes that we experience down here, that they come along the lines of the slave trade. I don't know if that's true. Like, it's something that I'm not going to have to go and research. I encourage you to go research it because I don't know if that part is true. But that's what I heard about these hurricanes that are forming out here in the ocean. But anyway, that's how they used fear. And that's how they kept these men under control. And there were some boats that raised up where the men, they banded together because it was more of them anyway. It was more of them. And so they took control of the boats and killed those slave traders. And, so they had control of the boats. You have to go back and do the research on all of that. But this here, King Menahem, king of Israel, it is documented in God's word that this is what he did. And so when we read about God saying to judge this bloody city, and when we read about what these people did and how angry God was, he was not happy. He was not happy. He was not happy. God was clearly not happy. And then like people talking about, the 12 lost tribes and the return of the 12 lost tribes and here with that too, because God loved them, but he did not approve of what they were doing, and so he was disciplining. So it says, because we're going to see more of that. It's just that part just really angered me. I'm sorry, y'all. It angered me. It did. It did. I felt some type of way. I still feel some type of way. I do. So this king, Menahem, he's king, and it says about him, it says, and he did evil. He reigned for 10 years in Samaria. He did evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not depart all his days from the sins of Jeroboam. That's the first one. With all that false worship. But this is something else he did. So, God used the other nations to discipline his people. And God used the king of Assyria, Tiglath-Pileser, a short name for him in the Bible is called Pul, P-U-L. But he used Tiglath-Pileser to come against Israel. And what King Menahem did when that happened, it says King Menahem gave Pul, Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, 1,000 talents of silver. In other words, he surrendered is not a really good word, but he sold himself and Israel, who he was running over, to Tiglath-Pileser. He became vassal king under Tiglath-Pileser. He gave him this money, and so because he did, Tiglath-Pileser, he got the money. He's like, okay, all right, you can rule, and you keep paying me. That's how it went. So here, when we're reading in Ezekiel, Jeremiah too, but in Ezekiel about Oholah being that her own tabernacle, they were worshiping they belonged. This was Israel. This was the children of promise, Abraham's kids. And what they did, so they sold themselves. For Israel, for this 10 tribe, they set up their own tabernacles. They was doing all this false worship, but they belonged to God. But like we're sitting back here reading all of this, it's not like they didn't have access to this. The kings had access. The people might not have read, but the kings had access. And so they knew their history. They knew about, Abraham. They knew how they got that territory to begin with. The people who originally was living in the land, they were doing things that God didn't approve of. So he moved them out the land and established Abraham in this land and said, I'm giving this to your kids. And he said it to Abraham at the time he didn't have any kids. So here all these 12, these sons, and they're doing this stuff now. And God said, you was mine. And then you done went and sold yourself to Assyria, but you was mine. She played the harlot. She lusted after her lovers, the neighboring Assyrians. So Menahem, he basically sells the Israelites to Assyria. And it says, and look at how he did it. Look at how he paid for it. So in the land, amongst the Israelites, amongst his brothers who he's ruling over, you got some who are really wealthy, and you got some who is poor. So this is verse 20 of 2 Kings chapter 15. It says, and Menahem exacted the money from Israel. He made them pay for it. Y'all, we call it today taxes. You have your state taxes, and you have your federal taxes, and then you have the taxing that they're putting on everything that we buy, and pennies on the dollar, but still, percentages of the money that you spend, you're paying tax on taxes. So it says, Menahem exacted the money from Israel, from all the very wealthy. So if you was really wealthy, he's taking the money from you. From each man 50 shekels of silver to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back and didn't stay in the land. Why would the king of Assyria continue to fight against this land who's paying him money? Like he's getting his wealth, his riches, so he left. You keep paying me, and that's what he did. So it says, Menahem dies. When he dies, his son Pekahiah takes over. Now here's the thing. During this time in Israel, Israel wasn't happy, y'all. Y'all know Israel was not happy about this thing. So during this time, there's two groups that rises up. Okay, you have your how do I call it? Where is it at? So it says here, this is the note. It says, in 743 BC, near the end of Menahem's reign, Tiglath-Pileser, known in the Bible by his throne name, which is Pulu or Pul, invaded the region. This created a new political situation, since Assyria was now the enemy to the north and the northeast. Thus, the major internal struggle for most of the small kingdoms of the Levant was between the pro-Assyrian party that advocated peace with Assyria at any price, and the anti-Assyrian party that advocated wars for independence at any price. When I read that, now we know that Menahem was pro-Assyrian because he didn't even have to be asked. He took this money and he started taking it from the wealthy. Now, the wealthy felt some type of way to have their money taken from them to give to this king. So there was two groups in Israel. There's two groups. Your pro-Assyrian, they wanted peace and they didn't care how they was going to get it. So look, if you want money, get them money. Then there was your anti-Assyrians who wanted independence, and so therefore they were willing to fight for it. Here's the thing. We have that going on today in America. Yeah, we do. It's called your Democrats and your Republicans. The two groups. We're looking at the same two groups. We're looking at the two groups here. So it says, Menahem basically purchased his throne by taking a pro-Assyrian stance and paying a huge tribute, 75,000 pounds of silver. I have no idea how much that's worth. I'm not going to look it up. Menahem raised the tribute money by imposing a head tax on the very wealthy. Y'all know they didn't like that. It says this tax alienated the anti-Assyrian parties in Israel. So one thing about him is he didn't get killed because he was cruel. I'm still mad about the fact that he cut these women open while they were pregnant. Because this one territory did not want to surrender to him. So yeah, I just don't like him. I don't like him. But anyway, he did not die of the violent causes that a lot of these kings died, where these others was rising up and killing them. So he died. His son Pekahiah reigns, and I don't know. It says about his son that he only reigned 2 years. It says that he too did evil in the sight of the Lord, did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam, the first one, who made Israel sin. Like Jeroboam, that first Jeroboam, he would never live that down, because he's the reason why Israel began falling into all of this pagan worship, just like they doing today. It says, so this other guy, Pekah, rises up, and he's like one of the officers. And that's another thing, like they they put these people in positions, right? And they have like their officers who goes out into like the military officers. How about oh wow, ooh, okay, so yesterday I sat in my husband's office with him and we had dinner. My husband put a movie on, and the movie was called Geostorm. So it was my first time seeing it. In the movie, just to get to the end of it, the stuff that was happening was being made to happen. It was an inside job, and it was being made to happen. And basically, the president had a right-hand man who was acting, and it was him who was causing everything. And his mentality was that when everything happened and even the president dies, he's going to be the next president. That's all I'm telling about that story. But the movie was called Geostorm, so it was about the weather, but this was an underlying part of it. And I mentioned that underlying part because of the fact that this is what was happening here. So Pekah, who rose up against Pekahiah, the son of Menahem, who was the new king, Pekah served as an officer. It literally says it right here. It says verse 25 of 2 Kings chapter 15. Then Pekah, the son of Remaliah, an officer of his, conspired against him and killed him in Samaria, in the citadel of the king's house, along with Argob and Ariah. And with him were 50 men of Gilead. He killed them and reigned in his place. So a lot of those, because the thing is, when these different ones was killing these kings who was only reigning like short periods of time because they was killed, it was always somebody that was close to them, somebody that had access to them. And when you think about today, like you have all these different officers whose jobs and positions have them surrounding the king. What you call it? Detail? I don't know what the details are called, but you have different ones whose jobs is to protect the king or protect the president. And so it has to be an inside job in order for somebody to be able to get close enough to be able to kill a king or a president. Keep that in mind. For future notice, keep that in mind. But when you think about these different presidents in the past who was killed, there was always an insider. It was always an insider because they got too many people surrounding them. So somebody was off of their post. Somebody. Anyway, so Pekah now becomes king. And Pekah was anti-Assyrian. Now remember, as long as they were pro-Assyrians, they were paying the Assyrians, and therefore the Assyrians weren't messing with them. But Pekah, he was anti-Assyrian, so therefore he was one who wanted the independence of Israel. Now man, you listen. Pro-Assyrians were those who did not care about paying the Assyrians. Pay them, get them what they want, so they leave us alone. Anti-Assyria were those who was not about to pay nothing, and they wanted to fight for their independence. Keep that in mind too when you look at the different things and the different platforms that the Democrats and the Republicans are standing for and fighting for or against. We're looking at the exact same thing. We're doing the exact same thing that they did back then. So Pekah, he's anti-Assyria, and he decides, we not paying nothing. Basically, he decides we ain't paying nothing. We're not paying nothing to this king, this Assyrian. No, we're gonna fight. So in verse 29, it says, in the days of Pekah, king of Israel, Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, came and took Ijon, Abel-Beth, Maacah, Genoa, Kadesh, Hazor, Gilead, Galilee and all the land of Naphtali, and he carried them captive to Assyria. So that's the first wave of being carried off to Assyria. Now here's the thing about that. When he carried them off, the reason that the king of Assyria came up against them and took those lands, because they stopped paying them, because they were rebelling. So that happened, and now there's this group that is mad at Pekah. There's a group. And so Hoshea, son of Eli, now it's said about him that they don't know whether or not he was pro-Assyria or anti-Assyria, but it's thought that he was anti-Assyria because of the fact that he also refused to pay anything, basically. So it says, verse 30, then Hoshea, the son of Eli, led a conspiracy against Pekah, the son of Remaliah. No doubt they're mad because of everything, that all his territory that the Syrians had taken. It says, and he struck and killed him, so that he reigned in his place in the 20th year of Jotham, king of Uzziah. So Jotham, king of Uzziah, that was the kings over Judah. We are looking at the kings over Israel, Samaria, these 10 tribes. What happened with these 10 tribes? The tribes everybody talked about was the 10 missing tribes, but I said they're not missing. So it skips for a second and gives us information about Judah. And so here's a little bit of that information. So at the time that Pekah was still king, before Hoshea killed him, Pekah teamed up with his cousins, the Syrians. So the Assyrians and the Syrians are two separate groups. The Syrians are cousins of the Israelites. Who are they? They're the children of Esau. Esau was called Edom, and the Syrians are the Edomites. So Pekah and the Syrians did not like the Assyrians either. The Assyrians, that they're different from Babylon in that they came down from, let me kind of show you. I think I have a map in here where I could show you. The Syrians were your neighbors to they were like your next door neighbors to the Israelites. The Assyrians, they were down in the area of Babylon. The Assyrians and the Babylonians, even though they were next door neighbors, they were not the same. The difference between the Assyrians and the Babylonians, because they're down from that area, is this: Babylon was known for knowledge. They were your mathematicians. They were the ones who, what did I write about them? Astronomy, law, religion, that came from the Babylonians. Whereas the Assyrians, they were your military. They were the fighters. They were your military. And they had a really wicked and strong way of fighting. And they was a mess. That was Nineveh. Nineveh is your Assyrians. So Syria. So Syria, who is next door, and to give you an idea, because I can't find the map, and I don't want to spend too much time looking for the map. You have Israel. Let me do it like this. You got Judah and Israel. Okay, Judah, Israel, going this way, right? You have Israel. Judah's down here. You got Israel and Syria. Okay, you have Syria, Assyria, Babylon. So look at it like a black pen, a dark pen. Here we go. So you put Judah down here, I'm going to put Israel right here. I'm going to put Syria right here. I'm going to put Assyria right here. And Babylon. Okay, so you might be seeing it going this way here, but it's actually flipped and going this way on the map. If you're looking at it on the map, it will be on this side, but you know, the phone, when you're doing a video or whatever, it flips everything around, and so it's going to look like it's on this side, but it'll be on this side. So it'll be Judah, and I can show you this part of it just to give you an idea. See, Judah is down here, and this up here is Israel, and that's what I wrote here: Judah, Israel, and then next to Israel was Syria. But there's something else that happened. So in chapter 16, at the time it's King Ahaz, he's king. Pekah is the king of Israel. Rezin is the king of Syria. Rezin, Syria, remember, these are cousins. These are Edomites. These are Esau's kids, and the Israelites are Jacob's kids. So Pekah and Rezin come together. And they come together because they want to take a stand, because they are anti-Assyria. So they want to take a stand against Assyria and shut Assyria down. Tiglath-Pileser, and then his son Shalmaneser, whatever his son's name is. So they're taking a stand, right? Pekah and Rezin. And so they're trying to force Judah to get involved. And Judah does not want to, and they're pressing. So now you have, this is chapter 16. So now you have Syria and Israel, the 10 tribes of Israel, fighting against Judah, Jerusalem, all that territory. They're fighting against it. And so they end up, the Syrians, Esau's kids, the Edomites, ends up taking control of one of the key cities of Judah. The city that they take control of is called Elath. Let's see if I can find it on the map to show you where it is. So they end up taking control of this area called Elath, and which was a key area for Judah. And so they did not get control of Jerusalem like they wanted, but when they took control of Elath, and this is how Judah got in trouble, which led to the destruction of Judah by Babylon. Elath is another word for Elath is Ezion Geber. I'm trying to find a map of it for you. So let's see. 22. Ezion Geber. That's not map 22. Here we go. Map 22. Ezion. Okay, here we go. All right, so here's Jerusalem right here. All of this area is Judah. This area up here is Israel. Well, here, because here's our, so this area down here is Judah. This area right here is Israel, because remember, our markers is Tyre and Damascus. So this area right here would be Syria. This area over here would be Assyria. There's Ashur right there. So this area over here would be Assyria, and there's Nineveh right there, and then this area down here is Babylon. And so that's what I was showing you here on this. You have Judah, Israel, Judah, Israel, Syria, Assyria, Babylon. So Syria, where we at? Here. Syria and Israel teams up to fight against Jerusalem because these two wants all of them to fight against Assyria to push them back. Judah didn't want no part of it. And so they go to fight against Jerusalem. Now listen. The 10 tribes going to fight against the 2 tribes. They are brothers. That's family. They're brothers. The cousins getting in on the fight. The cousins is on the side of the 10 tribe, and they're all going to fight against Judah. When they fight against them, they ended up taking the Syrians, the cousins, the Edomites, ends up taking control of this area here. Now, all of this area was in the territory of Judah. They end up taking control of this area here. This is Ezion Geber, which is also known as Elath. This is 2 Kings chapter 16, verse number 6. This is what it says. At that time, Rezin, king of Syria, captured Elath for Syria and drove the men of Judah from Elath. Then the Edomites went to Elath and dwelled there to this day. So that's the cousins. They live there. And so what happened was, when it happened, King Ahaz of Judah. Now remember, Israel, Menahem, when Menahem was king, he had already sold himself to the Assyrians. So they were paying this tribute or these taxes over to the Assyrians. And then when he died, his son was going to do the same, I think. And then Pekah rises up, and they like, we're not doing this, because they wanted to fight. Whereas Menahem and Pekahiah, they just pay the money, and they just take the money from the rich and give it to him. So it shifted from, now I don't know how the Democrats and I don't know enough about the Democrats or about the Republicans to say which group would be which. I can't do that, but just imagine these two groups fighting. Actually, you don't have to imagine it, you practically is living it. These two groups fighting, you live it at least every year, or especially around the voting years, you see this craziness. So the two groups come up. So Pekah wins. Pekah is anti-Assyrian. He wins. Now, because he's anti-Assyrian, because he's not paying them anything else, here comes Assyria, and they're coming and they're grabbing up territory now. Oh, really? You're not gonna pay me? Give me that. Give me that. Give me that. And so now you have Israel and Syria trying to fight back, and they're trying to get Judah involved. And Judah's like, King Ahaz, instead of him going to, now remember, Judah represents Oholibah, which is my tabernacle is in her. Jerusalem is in Judah. So instead of King Ahaz going to God and praying and asking God and telling God, look, this is what's going on, and and what am I to do? Instead of him sitting back and watching, not sitting back and doing nothing, because if you think that praying is doing nothing, then I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry, because if you think that just praying does nothing, then that tells me that you don't believe that God is real. Because prayer is our communication. It's how we talk to God. It's how we communicate with God. And so instead of Ahaz doing that, instead of him going to God and getting direction and instructions, because who the leader of the army is God. He is Jehovah Nissi, the banner bearer. He's the one that listen. You have many kings throughout God's word who knew how to hit their knees and pray and ask God for help, and who experienced God literally fighting the battle for them. So, King Ahaz didn't do that. And so what King Ahaz did, because his brother, let me go back to this. These two were fighting against him. So what he did was he reached out to Assyria. He now reaches out to Assyria. And he says to Assyria, this is verse 7 of 2 Kings chapter 16. This is Judah now. Remember, the Israelites had already did that with King Menahem, but then they revolted. So now he's reaching out. He says, it says verse 7, so Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, saying, I am your servant and your son. I'll pause right there for a second. He says, I am your servant. He done just prostituted himself. That's why God says they played the harlot. He sold himself. He says, and your son. Now, God says, you're mine. And yet you didn't just sold yourself to. He says, come up and save me from the hand of the king of Syria. That's his cousins, the Edomites. It says, and from the hand of the king of Israel. That's his brothers, who rise up against me. And Ahaz took the silver and the gold that was found in the house of the Lord and in the treasuries of the king's house, and sent it as a present to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria hated him. Look, he didn't even have to come against them. He didn't even have to come against them at all. He probably wasn't even yet thinking about them. They sent him money and everything. They're like, I'm your servant. I'm your son. These dudes, help me with them. And so he's like, okay, you done just paid me all this money. Let me go get that. Because these jokers belong to me anyway, because they had already sold themselves. So these jokers belong to me. Let me go shut this down. It says, King of Syria went up against Damascus, that's Samaria, or Israel, and took it, because they had already sold themselves. It says, and carried his people captive to Kir, and killed Rezin. Rezin is the Israelite, Edomite. He kills him. It says, now King Ahaz, so that part is when Israel got shut down. That's when Israel got destroyed. It says, now King Ahaz, this king down here, because now they destroyed. They out the way. Gone. Been obliterated. So now it's just this one. It says, now King Ahaz went to Damascus to meet Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and saw the altar that was at Damascus. And so this is what happened. This is what I read. Let me read it right here. It says, this is the note. It says, Ahaz's subjection to Assyria renewed the struggle between political prudence and loyalty to Yahweh. Though not always enforced, the general principle was that a vassal accepted the ruler's cultic symbols as sign of obedience to the ruling country and to its God. In this pagan worldview, Yahweh was treated as a local God who, along with his country, also has submitted to Ashur, the chief Assyrian god. and was privileged to become a part of Ashur's divine council. Now, y'all know they was worshiping demons. And yet this was how men down here on earth was looking at all of this and how they were treating our Creator. Yahweh could even give oracles to the Assyrians, particularly when they suited Assyrian purposes. Unlike Amaziah's voluntary idolatry with the gods of Edom, Ahaz's idolatry was forced on him by his submission to Assyria. Now, Amaziah would have been the king of, or Uzziah, Amaziah would have been the king of Israel. I think we read that he was king of Israel. But anyway, and Ahaz, king of Judah. So it says, Ahaz's idolatry was forced on him by his submission to Assyria. Ahaz's imported altar was the cultic symbol of his submission to Assyria's main god. And you wonder how all of these different worship practices that has been inculcated into your celebrations, the things that they're doing with like Christmas and the tree that's inculcated in that. What else you have? You have Halloween, you have Easter. You wonder how all these different practices happen. Now you're seeing how it happened. Now you see. It says, Ahaz's imported altar was the cultic symbol of his submission to Assyria's main god. The priest Urijah represented the complicity of some priests, I'm about to look that word up, of some priests and Levites in this religious corruption. Dictionary time. Complicity. They complied. They went along with it. That's why the sins of the kings, your leaders, and of the priests, your religious leaders, will bring plagues on the people. That's what we're all down here dealing with. Complicity. This is comply. I want the word complicity. Here we go. Complicity. The fact or state of being an accomplice, partnership in wrongdoing. That's complicity. So it says, the priest Urijah represented the complicity or the partnership in wrongdoing of some priests and Levites in this religious corruption. Sorry, that was me knocking. And this stuff has been passed down. And so in this series, God has been saying, Son of man, will you judge them? Will you judge them? He says, make known to them the abomination of their fathers. That's what we're looking at. For us, we're looking back at them and we're seeing where all of this stuff happened there. But I found in doing this study that I had to go back even farther and see, or even further, and see the core, the root, the original 12, and see these doors that they opened, things that they did, and then see how it carried down, and things have been carried down. And then you get to us, to our generations, and we're doing this stuff, and we're under these bondages, and we're submitted to these lies that has happened, and we don't even know that they're lies because we don't know what happened before. Yet God says in his word, Son of man, will you judge them? Make known to them. Or it says show them. No, it says make known to them the abominations of their fathers. Then he turns around and says, will you judge this bloody city? Because he's not telling us they're blood guilty. They're blood guilty. Number one, I learned in Ezekiel chapter 3 and chapter 33 that when God gives a warning, and the person that he gives the warning to do not speak this warning, they become blood guilty. He said that the people that's doing the wicked, they gonna die, but you'll be blood guilty because you didn't warn. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing these videos like back to back to back, because he told Ezekiel, he said, eat this scroll, this word that I'm giving you, eat this, let it get in your belly. Now go and speak it. And so that's why I speak. I don't care about, listen, I have been, anyway, I'm going to speak this word because I'm looking at this stuff and I'm realizing it, and what God is doing. Let me tell you how just He is. He is a just God. Can't none of us say we didn't know. Number one, we got it in His word, and we all got, listen, everybody that has access to the internet on your phones, you got access to God's word. In the story. If you don't know how to read, the Bible reads to you through the phone. You set it up and you click a button and it will read God's word to you. I have 2 such apps on my phone that do that. So there's no excuse. There just is no excuse except for that this stuff is not being told to us. It's not being taught. And yet, as much as I say that, we can't blame that it's not being taught, because number one, just because somebody ain't teaching it does not mean that you can't go and do the research. Google, we got access to Google. We can read something and we don't understand it, we can ask questions because somebody else has already asked the question, the same question, because God was leading. He was caught. Let me show this to you. Let me show this to you. Let me show this to you. Well, because I marked it in my notes. Where is it? Where is it? It's the next chapter. It's the next chapter because we're looking at chapter 16. So let me keep going, but I'm gonna show this to you how it is that we have no excuse, none whatsoever. We're doing these exact same things today, and God is causing, He's raising up people and causing people to speak it, but we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it. Or we'll read all this stuff and we'll be like, okay, well, that was them, not realizing that it's applying to us today too. He warned Jerusalem before Jerusalem fell. He sent warning after one after one. He sent Jeremiah to tell him. He was like, remember Shiloh, Jerusalem. Hello, remember Shiloh. Shiloh was the original place that held God's name. That was the original place of worship, and He removed His presence. He left the building, and they was going through the motions and didn't even know God had left. Just like today, King Jesus said that our day will be just like it was in Noah's day. People are eating and drinking, marrying and being given in marriage. Nothing's wrong with eating and drinking. We got to do it to live. Nothing's wrong with marrying or being given in marriage. But He said, and they took no note until the flood was upon them. So the warnings are going out, but people are not paying attention. All this stuff that we see happening in our world today, all this stuff is happening because Oholah and Oholibah. That's like the easiest way to say it. Oholah, everybody who is her own tabernacle. You're doing your own thing. You think you worshiping God. You're worshiping. God created us from the very beginning. We were created with an innate desire to want to worship. He put that in us. We were created to worship Him. He put that in us. But when we go out and we start doing all this other stuff and worshiping all this other things, like what God was like, you was mine. Adam and Eve was His, and they went and did what they did. You know, it's a lot. So Ahaz, because I want to get to chapter 17. Ahaz did what he did. God was angry about it. God sent and what Ahaz did was he basically called the Assyrians, paid the Assyrians. He paid a hitman, y'all. He paid a hitman. He paid for an assassin, and the assassin came named Assyria, because that's what they did. And they came and they destroyed Israel, and they destroyed Syria, the Edomites, and those who lived in that area, because the Edomites that moved down under where Judah is, the scripture said they stood there to this day. So anyway, God addressed Ahaz with that. He had a prophet go to King Ahaz. Ahaz was feeling himself like, the Syrians, that was averted. They've been dealt with. Ain't got to deal with that problem no more. They gone. They destroyed. He was feeling some type of gloating, feeling some type of way. And God sent a prophet to him, and that prophet said to him, what you did was wrong. Ahaz didn't want to hear that. He got mad. So what he did was he threw the prophet in jail. I think he threw him in jail. That's in Chronicles. I know for a fact that story is in Chronicles because that's where I first read it. I think it's like chapter 16. I found it. Nope, that's Asa. I keep getting Asa and Ahaz mixed up. Okay, so Asa is the son of Ahaz. I keep getting them mixed up. So Asa, being the son of King Ahaz down the road, what was started with King Ahaz was finished with King Asa. I keep doing that. I don't know why I keep doing that. But anyway, King Ahaz did what he did, and Tiglath-Pileser came and shut Israel down. And what's called. So, and they carried them away. It says, this is what it says. This is 2 Kings chapter 17, starting at verse 5. It says, now the king of Assyria went throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it for 3 years. So again, that would be all of the Israelite from Syria all the way to the Israelite territory of Samaria. It says he besieged it for 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria. Now, Hoshea is king of who? Let's see. It says in the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, Hoshea the son of Elah becomes king in Israel. Okay, so Hoshea is the one that killed. What's his name? Where's his name? At Pekah. Hoshea killed Pekah because Hoshea was, I guess, him and his group. They were mad about what had happened with Pekah, and all that territory was snatched up. So he killed Pekah. Now he's reigning. All right. So it says, in the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria. So Hoshea lost to the king of Assyria. It says he took Samaria and carried Israel away to Assyria and placed them in Oholah and by the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. That now takes you, that part right there, takes you all the way back to Exodus. I'm going to read it again. Verse number 7, 2 Kings verse 17. It says, for so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, who brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And they feared other gods and walked in the statutes of the nations whom the Lord had cast out from before the children of Israel, and the kings of Israel which they had made. And of the kings of Israel which they had made. In other words, Oholah, her own tabernacle. It says, also, the children of Israel secretly did against the Lord their God things that were not right. And they built for themselves high places in all of their cities. They built for themselves churches in all of their cities. We see that happening today. Again, they built for themselves. Oholah, her own tabernacle. It says, and they built for themselves high places in all their cities, from watchtower to fortified city. They set up for themselves sacred pillars and wooden images on every high hill and under every green tree. It says, there they burned incense on all the high places, like the nations whom the Lord had carried away from before them. And they did wicked things to provoke the Lord to anger, for they served idols, of which the Lord had said to them, you shall not do this thing. But they did it anyway. Verse 13, it says, yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah. And that's the thing. And that's where it said that Oholibah, Judah, his tabernacle was in them. Jerusalem was in them. Like, they knew better. They knew better. And they saw everything that was done to Israel or Samaria. They saw everything that was done there. And so now God is testifying both against Oholah and Oholibah. Listen to this, because this stuff is happening today. It says, yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all his prophets and every seer. Now remember, I said that today we won't be able to say we didn't know. We won't be able. God is raising up people to speak. He's raising up people to reveal these things. He is exposing things. We will not be able, when it comes time for us to stand before the Lord, our God, we will not be able to say, well, I didn't know. Really? You had a cell phone? Yes. You had internet on your cell phone? Yes. Did you ever research anything using Google on your cell phone or Mozilla or whatever your app was? Did you use Siri on your cell phone? Yes. You know, I didn't have Siri, but I used Google. Yes. And you still want to tell me you didn't know? You could not pull up. Did you have apps on your phone that you downloaded onto your phone? Yes. Really? You didn't download the Bible onto your phone? You can't read? I can read. Or no, I can't read. But yet you have a phone. You can't read, but you got a phone and internet on the phone. You can't read, but you know how to identify these different apps on your phone. And you couldn't put a Bible app on your phone, and you couldn't press the button where it reads to you and listen to it read to you, since you're not a good reader. You couldn't do. There's no excuse, y'all. We have no excuse. It says, this is verse 13, yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all of his prophets, every seer saying, turn from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes. That part. He's asking us today to turn from our wicked ways. He's asking this of us today. Turn from our wicked ways. Keep his commandments. What commandments? The 10. The 10. The very first 10. And my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants, the prophets. He gave us those 10. He made covenant with them and with us. Look, listen. Let me keep going. I'm going to read that again. Turn from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants, the prophets. Nevertheless, they would not hear. Just like today. It says, but stiffened their necks like the necks of their fathers, who did not believe in the Lord their God. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he had made with their fathers. The covenant. They rejected his statutes and the covenant. What is that? They rejected his statutes. That's plural. It means more than one. And the covenant. That's singular. The covenant that they rejected was the Sabbath, y'all. And you know what? Let me put a pause here. Let me go show this to you. I'm about to show you these commandments. You will say you didn't know on my watch, unless you decided not to watch the video no more. You're going to say you didn't know on my watch. Okay, so here is the statutes, which is the 10 commandments and the covenant. So commandment number 1, you shall have no other gods before me. Commandment number 2, you shall not make for yourself a carved image. Commandment number 3, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Commandment number 4, which is covenant. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. That's the covenant. That was a perpetual covenant, meaning it was never changing. And yet they changed it today. Commandment number 5, honor your father and your mother. Oh, you know that's being broken today. Commandment number 6, you shall not murder. Broken. Commandment number 7, you shall not commit adultery. Broken. Commandment number 8, you shall not steal. Look in your jails. Broken. Commandment number 9, you shall not bear false witness. Broken. Commandment number 10, you shall not covet. That's desiring something that belongs to somebody else. That's what leads to a person stealing. That's what leads to a person taking things that don't belong to them or taking liberties. Broken. Every last one of these commandments have been broken, including the covenant. Let's go back. It says, 2 Kings chapter 17, and everything that I mentioned when I said broken, I'm talking about for today. We're doing the exact same thing. We're doing the exact same thing. It says, and they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he had made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he had testified against them. They followed idols. You have your music idols, you have your entertainers that are idols, your beehives and your I don't know what they call all these different groups for these people that you idolize. Some of you have turned your pastors into idols. Some of you are idols to yourself. It's all about you. Idols. It says they followed idols, became idolaters, and went after the nations who were all around them, concerning whom the Lord had charged them that they should not do like them. So they left all the commandments of the Lord their God, made for themselves a molded image and 2 calves, made a wooden image, and worshiped all the host of heaven. It's worshiping angels, worshiping stars, doing your zodiacs and all that other stuff, and served Baal. And they caused their sons and daughters to pass through the fire. Some of that research, passing through the fire, killing them, passing through the fire, military. Y'all not gonna like that. They caused their sons and daughters to pass through the fire. One way is by killing them, abortions. You're killing them. A second way of causing your sons and daughters to pass through the fire is when you are supporting or encouraging, maybe not supporting, because you can't control what somebody else do, and people will make some choices and choose to do things. But some of them passing through the fire has been them signing up for military, and they're dying in military. Like, there's so many graves, so many children that are. It says, and caused his sons and daughters to pass through the fire, practice witchcraft. There's a scripture that says that rebellion is the same as witchcraft. I think it's in Samuel, in the book of Samuel. I had to find it, but it says rebellion is the same as witchcraft. And soothsaying, I don't know nothing about soothsaying. I don't know what that is, but it's listed right along with witchcraft. So it says, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord. Sold themselves. That makes me think of the things that is being exposed, that people are doing in order to reach elevated levels in whatever their craft is. I say craft because I'm thinking in my mind, I'm thinking about musicians, but also it's being exposed that this is happening in the entertainment industry too. That's why you have your Sean Combs is in jail now, and things are being exposed about the things that he was doing to people or causing people to do just so that they can get awards and get their song, their music out, and that they can be performing all over and have their name known. And it says, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them from his sight. So you wondering about them 10 lost tribes? Number one, they weren't lost. They were never lost. God knew exactly what it was. He knew exactly what it was. He knew exactly what happened to them because he caused it to happen. And he says why. We just read why. It says, therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them from his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah alone. Also Judah, because Judah was left, but also Judah did not keep the commandments of the Lord their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel, which they made. So even Judah was guilty. It says, and the Lord rejected all the descendants of Israel. Talking about Jacob, all his kids. It says, afflicted them and delivered them into the hand of plunderers until he cast them from his sight. For he tore Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. Talking about Israel, the 10 tribes. Then Jeroboam drove Israel from following the Lord and made them commit a great sin. That's when he made them 2 calves and said, this is your God that brought you up out of Israel. It says, for the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did. They did not depart from them until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight. As he had said by all his servants the prophets, so Israel was carried away from their own land to Assyria, as it is to this day. That's what happened to Israel. We know what happened to Judah because about a century or so later, Babylon came and shut Judah down. But the thing is, for God so loved the world, he loved them. So even after he was angry with them, he disciplined them, he restored them. First time, shame on you. Second time, shame on me. He had to destroy them again, this time with Rome. And that destruction of the temple by Rome in 70 CE, is still destroyed all the way down to our day. We're living these scriptures out. We're living out, and he's telling us what's happened, what happened and why. But in him telling us what happened and why, he's also now saying to us, remember Jerusalem. Remember Jerusalem. Remember Shiloh. And he said that he was doing a new thing. A new thing. In his saying that he was doing a new thing, he literally tells us in his word, and we talked about it in the second part of this 3-part series, where we was actually looking at the bloody city at Jerusalem. He shows us, he tells us he's doing a new thing. He shows us what he's doing. But what we're looking at with our eyes, we're looking at Oholibah. And we're looking at Oholah and all these churches. We're not getting it. We're not understanding it. It wasn't being broken down. It wasn't being explained. So here today in our world, in our time frame, we're going through a lot and we're dealing with a lot. Health issues, financial issues, relational issues. We're dealing with all this stuff. And it's just normal. It's normal to us. because it's all we've ever known. But it's not normal, y'all. It's not normal. These things that we're dealing with today, we're dealing with God's being angry at us and God allowing these things to happen to us to try to get our attention. But if we're not reading his word, if we're not digging into his word, if we're not looking at these things that happened in the past to see what's happening now, we won't even know. And so we're repeating the sins of the past. God says, will you judge them? Will you judge Oholah and Oholibah? The one that's doing her own thing, and the one that calls herself called by my name, the one that my tabernacle is in. She doing the same thing the other one is doing. In other words, when you have the world saying to the Christian that you hypocritical, when you have the world saying to us that we're hypocritical, when you have the world, quote unquote, like on down low, chastening us for how we dance, gyrating on the stage, Kirk Franklin. That's Oholah and Oholibah. Oholah is doing her own thing. Oholibah called by God's name. My tabernacle is in her. And she is treacherous because she's doing the exact same thing that the world is. You got the world singing about and writing about the church but that's what we're looking at. We're looking at Oholah and Oholibah. I'm about to let y'all go. This video is long. It's long. I apologize. But I'm about to let y'all go, and I'm about to get this uploaded. And yeah, verse 5. We were just looking at. Let me go ahead and say this. Let me go ahead and share this. Ezekiel chapter 23. Our study was of verse 5, and we were able to go back and look and see what was going on and how it was that she lusted after her neighboring Assyrians. So this is what it says, verse 6. Because now it's talking about these Assyrians. It says, who were clothed in purple, captains and rulers, all of them desirable young men, horsemen riding on horses. Thus she committed harlotry with them, all of them choice men of Assyria, and with all for whom she lusted, with all of their idols she defiled herself. She's never given up her harlotry brought from Egypt. For in her youth they had lain with her, pressed her virgin bosom, and poured out their immorality upon her. So this thing was deeply ingrained all the way from back in Egypt. So and it says she never gave that up. But I wanted to read, and I would pick up. I'm going to pick up with video 6 with verse number 8, but I wanted to read verse 6 and 7 because 6 and 7 actually describes the Assyrians. So it says again, verse 5, she lusted for her lovers, the neighboring Assyrians, who were clothed in purple. So she liked how they was dressed. She liked how they carried themselves, their military prowess, because that's who the Assyrians were. It says captains and rulers, all of them desirable young men. It says horsemen riding on horses. Thus she committed her harlotry with them, all of them choice men of Assyria, and with all of whom she lusted, with all their idols she defiled themselves, because she now that she's connected to them, she's going to worship like they worship. She's going to do what they do so that she can fit in. You know, some of y'all are doing it too. When y'all are going to these different places of worship and learning these different things, and so then you're going to do it how they do it. You're programming. It's programming. Never mind what God said. But you think you're serving the Lord. But he's literally telling us in his word. He's literally telling us. So I want to close with this because God is definitely reaching for us. And that's what we read in 2 Kings chapter 17. And, he was telling the people, turn around, turn from your wicked way. And I like how it said in Chronicles chapter 7. He said, if my people who are called by my name, if you would turn from your wicked way. No, that's not what it says. It says, if you will humble yourself, if you will pray, if you will seek my face and turn from your wicked ways. He says, then I'll hear from heaven. I'll forgive you of your sin and I'll heal your land. There are things that you're going through, things that you're dealing with. He told us what it was in verse 13. He said, if I shut up the heavens so it don't rain, that's a financial issue. He said, if I command the locusts to devour, that is a relational issue. Dealing with breakdown in relationship, breakdown in your big ticket items, breakdown in like divorces and death. He says, if I send a plague among my people, that's a health issue. He said, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, he said, I'll hear from heaven. I will hear. He said, I'll forgive you of your sins and I'll heal your land. So he's given us a choice. You know what you're dealing with. You know whatever is going on in your body. You know whatever your finances look like. You know what you're dealing with. God said he's doing it. Are you going to continue to not listen? Are you going to continue to not listen? God does not desire to destroy any of us. That's why he's reaching for us. That's why he's allowing us to wake up yet another day in this world. But the time is running out. That grace period is running out. I'm about to sit and soak in all of this. It was really interesting for me. I learned a lot. And I thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you return because we're not done. All right, bye for now.